When Clara Evans stepped out of the taxi in front of the Grand Hayes mansion, she could feel the weight of her decision pressing down on her chest. The enormous iron gates opened slowly, revealing a world that seemed too perfect to belong to reality. Marble stairs, shining windows, and a fountain that whispered of money and power stood before her. She took a deep breath, clutching the small brown purse that carried all she owned, and walked toward the door that would soon change her life. The housekeeper, a strict woman named Mrs. Dalton, opened the door with a cold expression. "You're the new help?" she asked, eyeing Clara's plain dress. Clara nodded politely. "Yes, ma'am. I was told Mr. Hayes needed a live-in maid." Mrs. Dalton sighed. "You'll need more than polite manners to survive in this house. The twins, Ethan and Noah, have driven away 7 nannies in 6 months. They don't listen, they don't care, and they don't like anyone new." Clara smiled gently, the kind of smile that came from a place of quiet strength. "Maybe they just haven't met the right person yet." Mrs. Dalton raised an eyebrow, almost amused. "We'll see how long that optimism lasts." Inside, the mansion was breathtaking. High ceilings, gold accents, and expensive art hung on the walls. But despite all the beauty, the house felt cold, like a museum that had forgotten what warmth meant. Mr. Hayes, a tall man in his 40s, stood near the staircase, talking on his phone with a tone sharp enough to cut glass. His suit was perfect, his hair neatly combed, but his eyes were distant. He ended the call and turned to Clara. "You're the new maid?" "My sons are upstairs. I'll warn you now. Don't expect them to be easy. Every nanny before you thought she could handle it." "None did." Clara nodded softly. "I understand, sir." "I'll do my best." He gave a dry chuckle. "Everyone says that." Then he walked away. "Already lost in business calls and deadlines." When Clara entered the twins' room, she froze. 2 little boys, identical in face but different in mischief, were jumping on the bed, throwing pillows at each other. One of them noticed her and shouted, "Another one!" "How long before she cries?" The other laughed so hard he nearly fell off the bed. Clara didn't scold them. She simply stood quietly until they stopped giggling from confusion. Then she said softly, "You must be Ethan and Noah. I've heard a lot about you." Ethan grinned. "We're famous. Everyone runs away." Clara smiled back. "Then I guess I'll stay. I've never met anyone famous before." Her calmness puzzled them. Usually their noise and chaos scared people off, but Clara didn't flinch. She picked up the toys scattered on the floor and asked gently, "Who's ready for dinner?" Noah crossed his arms. "We don't eat with maids." Clara nodded. "That's fine. I'll bring your plates upstairs then. But food tastes better when someone listens to your stories while you eat." She left quietly, leaving the twins staring at each other. Over the next few days, they tried every trick, spilling juice, hiding her shoes, even locking her in the laundry room. But each time, Clara responded not with anger, but patience. She'd smile and say, "That was clever, but you'll have to try harder if you want to surprise me." Slowly, their curiosity grew. Why wasn't she angry? Why didn't she quit like the others? One night, Clara passed by their room and heard soft sobs. She paused and listened. "I miss Mom," one boy whispered. The other said, "Dad doesn't care anymore." The sound of their pain broke something inside her. That night, Clara understood. These boys weren't bad, they were hurting. Their mother had passed away 2 years ago, and their father had buried himself in work, leaving them lost in a mansion filled with silence. The next morning, Clara didn't lecture or pity them. Instead, she made pancakes shaped like stars. "Your mom used to make these, didn't she?" she asked gently. Ethan looked up in shock. "How do you know?" Clara smiled. "I read it in your eyes." From that day, everything began to shift. The boys started helping her in small ways, setting the table, feeding the dog, laughing more. They began to wait for her stories before bed. Clara told them tales about kindness, courage, and second chances. Weeks turned into months. The mansion that once echoed with tantrums now filled with laughter. Even Mr. Hayes began to notice. One evening, as he entered the house, he heard the boys giggling in the kitchen. He stopped at the doorway and watched Clara teaching them how to mix cookie dough. Something about that scene, simple, warm, and real, stirred feelings he hadn't felt in years. He cleared his throat. "Smells good in here." The twins ran to him. Dad, we made cookies with Clara. For the first time in a long while, he smiled without forcing it. But happiness rarely comes without a test. One afternoon, a valuable watch went missing from Mr. Hayes's office. The security cameras had a gap in recording, and suspicion fell on Clara. Mrs. Dalton whispered that it was always the quiet ones you had to watch. Mr. Hayes, torn between logic and trust, called Clara into his office. "Tell me the truth," he said coldly. "Did you take it?" Clara's heart sank. "No, sir. I would never." He looked away. "Until I know for sure, I think it's best if you leave." The twins were devastated. "She didn't do it!" They cried, but their father had made up his mind. Clara packed her small suitcase with trembling hands, tears blurring her vision. As she left the house, the boys ran after her, hugging her legs. "Don't go, Clara, please." She smiled through tears. "Be good, my little stars." Then she walked away, the sound of their cries echoing behind her. Days passed, and the mansion felt lifeless again. Mr. Hayes tried to work, but guilt gnawed at him. Then one morning, the gardener found the missing watch buried under a pile of leaves near the twins' treehouse. The boys confessed. They had hidden it while playing, afraid of getting in trouble. Mr. Hayes's world stopped. He realized what he had done. He had driven away the only person who had truly cared for his family. Without wasting a second, he got into his car and drove across town to find her. He found Clara working at a small diner, wearing a faded apron but still carrying that same quiet grace. When he entered, she froze in surprise. He spoke softly, his voice breaking. "I made a terrible mistake." The watch was found. "I'm so sorry." Tears filled her eyes. "You don't owe me an apology, sir. You owe your sons love." He nodded. "They miss you more than anything." Later that evening, when Clara returned to the mansion, the twins ran down the stairs and threw their arms around her. "We told you we didn't do it." She laughed, hugging them tightly. Mr. Hayes stood behind them, emotion flooding his face. "Clara, if you'll allow it, I'd like you to stay. Not as a maid, but as part of this family." Clara looked around the grand house that once felt so cold. Now it glowed with warmth and laughter. "I'll stay," she said softly, "but only if we promise that no one in this house will ever feel alone." Again, Mr. Hayes nodded, his voice thick with emotion. "That's a promise." Years later, neighbors would often see the Hayes family walking together through the park. Two growing boys, their father, and the woman who had turned their mansion into a home. Clara never spoke of her past struggles again. But deep down, she knew she had found what she was searching for all along, a family that wasn't hers by blood but by heart. And in the end, it wasn't money, status, or perfection that changed their lives. It was kindness, the simple, quiet kind that asks for nothing, yet gives everything.